Do you have an oddly specific fanfiction nitpick that other people usually miss? So, I was binge reading today and encountered mine 3 times. It's a pretty common one where an author uses his or her voice drops or raises several octaves. Each time I read it, I know that the person who wrote it had no idea how low or high it is. Dropping or raising an octave is a feasible fit for a human voice range. I'll accept 2, even though it sounds dubious. But more than that, especially if by several they meant something like 5 or 6, congrats, your character just went beyond human hearing range. Credit to Reddit user Vesperlark for starting this thread on the fanfiction subreddit. And let's go read some answers. Get your nitpicking hats on, everybody. Saying bravo instead of brava to or about a woman. I give it a pass if the character is a modern person who has no reason to know the difference, but it annoys me when it's an educated person who would certainly know better. I think I came across it in a Lord Peter Wimsey story, and I was muttering, no, Lord Peter is a British aristocrat, Oxford graduate, and multilingual. He would never say that. This is, in fact, extremely specific. Bravo. Ahem! I am female. It drives me insane how everyone in Fix drinks greedily. Apparently every single character in every single fandom always consumes beverages like a dehydrated lunatic. Hydro homies the fandom. When interest was piqued with a K is used instead of interest was piqued with a Q. I see peak with a K used 9 out of 10 times. Which I get, I thought it was that too for a while. But once I learned the difference, it's just one of those things that always stands out to me. In a similar vein, I see weary when they mean wary quite a bit. When people use the word rouge instead of rogue, this happens a lot in Batman fanfiction, where they start talking about his rouge gallery, but it happens in so many fanfics spanning over every fandom, and it makes me cringe every single time. Batman calls his makeup collection his Rouge gallery. That's what comes to mind with that. In general, huge errors in describing illness and injury, written by people with no medical knowledge who never bother to research or decide to ignore reality. Things like having had an appendectomy, but desperately wanting sex only 24 hours later. With a badly broken leg, the character treks across a mile of rubble and jumps across a pit. Ow, they say, their leg hurting slightly. Why can no one ever breathe through their nose while kissing? People are always pulling apart and gasping for breath like you have to hold your breath the entire time you kiss. That is not how kissing works. Are the characters stuffed up? Because they probably shouldn't be making out if they are sick. Ravage versus ravish. These two get switcherooed quite a bit, and I've done it myself too. This. I don't want to hear about people being ravaged during sexy times or ravished in the middle of a war. It annoys me to no end. When the characters use nicknames or pet names for each other that I don't personally like, I just have to put the fic down. It takes me out of the story so much. Me too. So many people use babe or baby, and I hate that pet name. I can forgive it if it matches with the character, but it's worse if it doesn't fit their speech pattern. The main character's name needs to be good. I can't stand a bad one, especially bad when it's your name, y/n. I used to have a browser extension to fix that. It doesn't even need to be good for me, it just needs to not be Alex, Alexander, or some other variation of Alex. Nothing against the name, I just see it in pretty much every fanfic that involves an original character, that I'm starting to think it's just a bad meme at this point. Come on, bro, don't call me out like that. When character names from audio-visual media, like TV shows, films, etc., are misspelled, there are wikis, there are end credits, there is no excuse for spelling names by ear. This especially irks me when it's about a book. You see the character's name on every page. If they're a side character with a weird name, you've got more of an excuse, but you're still reading it. Excessive italics. I cannot stand it. I will stop reading a fic entirely. Yep, I dropped an otherwise decent fic because every sentence the writer felt the need to emphasize at least 2 words, often more. I dislike full capitalization for yelling or shouting. If you're a good enough writer, you'll be able to convey the scene and emotions without, "Ah, no!" I really feel what I read, and the full capitalization takes away from it. Spend the time and build up the scene. Capitalized words bother me so badly, especially if they're not even being used for yelling, just emphasis. Like, thanks, now the narrator in my head is yelling at me because you wanted to emphasize a word via capitalization, rather than literally anything else. There were so many options. When the characters are in a chat fic, or there's a part of the fic styled as an in-universe text message conversation, and one of them has a username that references a specific fandom meme about them that they would be unlikely to or never choose as their username in character. Akechi from Persona mentioned pancakes like once, and he hates thinking about them because they remind him of how he messed up. He would not have a pancake-themed username on Discord. Getting military ranks wrong. It's a petty pet peeve. Doesn't stop me from reading, but there are no generals in the Navy. It doesn't feel like it should be that specific, but going by how often it appears, it seems to be, which is various historic things, especially related to women's clothing and underwear, along with general hygiene. It baffles me how common the misconceptions about corsets, stays, and other undergarments meant to hold breasts still are. No, they're not torture devices made by men that make you unable to breathe. Stop it. I've said this several times, but if you're going to write a fic in a historical setting and want to describe a perfume, at least Google what was popular or available at the time. Most Bath & Body Works type scents weren't popular in, say, the 1920s. Most mid-20th century feminine fragrances would be considered unisex, if not masculine, by today's standards. It's just a whole thing I've got. I feel like I get punched out of the story when I read an American culture thing happening in any anime fics. I am 100% understanding of this, though. I live in the US and have never been to Japan, so I don't have first-person knowledge. Many writers don't. But there's something off about the vibe of these Japanese characters talking about finding a date for senior prom or needing a car in Tokyo, unless there is an explicit reason why this is happening. When the author gets the currency wrong, that sometimes happens in K-drama, K-pop, or anime fandoms. It's clear that the story takes place in Japan or Korea, but the characters pay with dollars. Or they get the currency right, but the value is just off. The character's paying for some food with a couple of Korean won, but you can't buy anything with a couple of Korean won. I see it everywhere, and I'm sure I've used it, but it felt like forever, but must have only been a few minutes. Apparently everyone is walking around feeling like things take ages longer than they do. The other one is saying something like, "The curtains were teal, but the character didn't notice." If she didn't notice in this close third-person perspective, then why is this being conveyed to the reader? Clearly they were noticed. Similar vein, but when an author says something that can't possibly have taken more than 40 seconds without becoming weird somehow, lasted for a few minutes. Usually I've seen this in regards to eye contact, and let me tell you, minutes is an insane amount of time to hold silent eye contact with someone. This is why I tend to say a few moments. How long is a moment? 3 seconds? 30 seconds? 3 minutes? Who knows? It's just a moment. A bit more widely spread, but I need the could've/should've epidemic to die. And similarly, could care less instead of could not care less. Guys, please, I'm begging you. Further and farther drives me nuts when it's used incorrectly. The continual and constant misspelling of the word woe. Woa is not a word. I don't care how many other fanfics you've read it in and copied it from. Still not a word. I don't even know how this particular misspelling got so common. It's not even phonetically better than the right spelling. Then there was the time I ran across the line, Woa is me. That's a whole different issue. Whoa is me would be a good line for someone meeting their time-displaced doppelganger. I'm sorry, the whole eyes as orbs. Orbs get me. I will absolutely read it anyway, but there's a limit. I usually just close the fic if it's really overused. I read a story once where I don't think they actually used the word eyes ever. Every single time, it was orbs. Like, is everyone just walking around with their eyes hanging out of their sockets? Does everyone have Graves' disease? It's very inconsequential, but when an author wants to indicate the character stopping midway through a word or elongating a syllable, and they choose the wrong spot to do it. For stopping, I mean when a word cuts off halfway through. Like, what do you do? I mean, I don't think cutting yourself in the middle of a word is very common in the first place, but it's fiction, it's for dramatic value, it's fine. But people sometimes choose a spot in the middle of a syllable to do it. For example, they want to cut off the word specifically, and they do it like this. Specifical. Like, no, that L comes in a syllable with that Y. They create one functional unit. As sounds, they leave the mouth at the same time. You can't have that consonant alone there. That's between very uncomfortable and impossible to say. I don't really think you can cut off single-syllable words at all, precisely for those reasons. And as for syllable elongation, it's like if they want to elongate come on, and they write it like come on. Like, say that out loud. Actually elongate that specific sound. It sounds unnatural. I think most people instinctually elongate it like, come on. I don't usually use those kinds of techniques often, but whenever I do, I take a moment to think about how this text I'm writing would sound spoken out loud, and whether speaking it as I'm writing it would actually be feasible and natural. The voice octaves thing is exactly my nitpick, and I've thought about it far too much. Even dropping or raising one octave isn't believable in normal speech. If you really listen to someone's voice raising or lowering with emphasis, it's typically only a fourth or a fifth. For example, try actually saying out loud, "Are you serious?" with rising emphasis, or "You're kidding me" with falling emphasis. I genuinely think the only time the average person would shift whole octaves outside their normal speaking range is screaming in surprise, like being startled or on a roller coaster or something. Me, sitting at home alone, singing, "Are you serious?" with a full octave jump up. I hope my neighbors can't hear me. Big thank you to my Patreon members, my little Rouge, Kuski55, Nebulatic Vexen, Sam, Donka42, John Huang, Laser Scorpio, Night Avenger, Mintara, Somnophobic Danny, Savage Otters, Falsey, RG Laws Writer, and Terabyte AIX. Thank you so much for your extra support on Patreon. It means the world to me. So grateful to have you around and hope you guys are doing well. Same goes to my YouTube channel members, my mini Rouge, AD, Taylor Thompson, Foxstar Killer, and This Person 10. Thank you so much for your extra support, and I'm so glad to have you be part of my YouTube channel. And I wish you guys all the best as well. And thank you to everyone else for watching. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you found it fun. Maybe you agreed with these nitpicks, maybe you don't agree with these nitpicks. Let me know in the comments. Or let me know what your own little nitpicks when you're reading fanfiction or fiction in general are. Little mistakes and stuff like that. Or nitpicks in your own writing. Maybe there's something that you catch yourself doing, and you're always a little ticked off when you're reading back your work and you find it. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, I wish you the best, and goodbye.